everybody, I am Dana, aka Leafy Diva, and I'm going to show you guys my Anthurium collection today. A lot of people know that Anthuriums are actually my favorite genus, and I own more than a few of them. I acquired most of my Anthuriums in around 2021 and 2022, and they were all very small when I got them. We got a lot of Anthuriums to cover, so let's get started. This is my Anthurium villaneorum. He was part of my very first import order from Ecuador, and this plant is probably one of the slower growing Anthuriums. He's not the slowest, but he's a slow growing Anthurium. But what he lacks in speed of growth, he gains in just how steady his growth is. He acclimates to so many different conditions. He's been through a hurricane with me. He was here when I didn't have a humidifier. These leaves are just so structural. They're very tough. Also, it holds on to so many leaves, y'all. Let me show you. He has 11 leaves. 11 leaves. This thing is just constantly pushing out leaves, albeit at a slow pace. He holds on to most of his leaves. This is the Anthurium longissibilobum and the Anthurium forgetii biluxurians. I got both of these at an Ecuador pop-up, and let me tell you, I was pretty upset with this particular one because I paid $165 for it. It was an impulse buy. I thought I paid too much. And when I started seeing other people's online, theirs are way bigger than mine. And then at first it was growing really slow. Like it took a long time to acclimate. But you know what? I'm good now because this plant is now one of my most steady Anthuriums. I cannot recommend this plant enough. He's just so solid. There's nothing more to say. And then over here, I have the longissibilobum. I also have buyer's remorse with this as well. I kind of still do. I wanted the longissibilobum, like the long, slim form with these like menacing looking leaves. And I got this little floppy thing. I found out later on that it was another type, another form of longissibilobum, which is not the one that I wanted. But you know what? We're going to keep her because she produced one of the most interesting leaves I've ever seen. Like, look at that. This is what her leaves typically look like. And then look at this new one. She's interesting enough to keep. Grows extremely slow. And I think people have problems taking care of this. And I think the reason why might be overwatering sometimes because this plant really does not guzzle up a lot of water. I have it in a self-watering planter, so I see how much water it takes in at one time. And let me tell you, I go weeks without having to fill this reservoir. And this, my friends, is a tale of two queen Anthuriums. These are only months apart. This is my big boy right here. Trying to make sure you can see him all. This is probably the proudest I am of an Anthurium. Not only is he beautiful, but the way that the lobes are formed, this is just the perfect shape. I hope I never lose this plant. This plant right here, I got these months apart from each other, and at one time they produced leaves at the same time. Their leaves were both the same size. Actually, this one's leaves were a little bit bigger than this one, but you know what happened? Summer came. Summer came, and they just don't do that well in really warm temperatures. And he couldn't figure it out. This plant started browning immediately. I thought I was gonna lose him too, but he kept on. But this one, he just died back to the stump. He's on the road to recovery now. This is the first leaf that he's produced after that, and it took a very long time for him to get it out. I want to show you guys something else while I have the opportunity. Actually, all of my Anthuriums are in a mineral substrate called lechuzapan, and what I like to do to maximize the growth or to get more root spread is I will take an Anthurium when I first pot it up and I will lay it down to its side so that all of the nodes are touching the substrate so it can root deeper into the substrate and then just make a healthier plant in general. And so I did it with this one. So you can see how this was planted in on his side and then he goes all the way to the edge of the pot before he starts coming up. The alternative to that is possibly using a moss pole. I know Sydney the plant guy, he's really big here on YouTube and Instagram. I know he has his queens on a moss pole and they do really well. And it's basically the same concept. It's just that you're growing them to face down in the pot as opposed to on the moss pole where it's going vertically. Is it here? Look at him. Ah! All right, let me get these in frame. This is my Anthurium magnificum silver, and this is my Anthurium waterburinum by Warcanum. I'm in love with magnificums, like really in love with magnificums, and I saw Ecuador had a Magnificum Silver on their website, and silver is just supposed to have really bright veination, right? These are more like a light minty green than it is a silver. I'm not like that fond of it. At one time I wanted to give it away or sell it or something like that, but it's hard to give away a plant that just grows. So I think I'm gonna keep them. Also, all these leaves are in my care. I've repotted this a few times, and I've never had a perfect leaf on this plant. Like, I've just never had one. And at this point, I don't care to have a perfect leaf. I just don't feel like investigating enough to do it. He can stay as he is. He's fine. Next is the Anthurium Warricana by Rory Burnham. I got him because I heard that he was an easier plant to take care of than the Warricanum, the Queen Anthurium. That proves to be right. But you know what I've noticed about him? He gets powdery mildew really quickly. In my area in particular, I'm in New Orleans and I'm like right down the street from the river. It's pretty humid here, and powdery mildew is just something that everyone deals with even in their garden. So I deal with it in my house, but only with my Queen Anthurium and this Anthurium. It doesn't affect any of my other plants, only these particular ones, so they just must be more prone to it. I will tell you though, I use Physan 20. I'll link it in the description. It's in my Amazon storefront. I use Physan 20. It's a disinfectant and it pretty much tames the powdery mildew. So that's just what I use. There are like a lot of home remedies and other things that you can buy, but I just find Physan 20 just knocks it out, takes care of it. He grows big leaves really fast. He's still a solid plant. These three are rehab plants. This is the Anthurium Dock Block by Magnificum. This is a rehab I got back in April of last year, and he's grown really well. He only had one leaf when I potted him up, and now he's just living his best life, and he has characteristics of both the Magnificum and the Dock Block with this like red veining in it. I really like this plant, and I really am happy to see when it sizes up big, because I just think this is going to be a showstopper in my collection. Moving on, this is Anthurium Pterodactyl by Nervium, and I am so embarrassed, y'all, because he used to be perfect. This stuff on the leaves, he used to be perfect. He came to me along with this Dock Block by Magnificum, and he only had one leaf. I rehabbed him, and he just took off, and then he got extremely root bound, and now he is sick. And let me show you the roots. See that? He's really, really root bound. I did some root pruning, so any of the roots that were coming through, I cut them out. He just needs a new repot. I feel bad. This is all my fault. But other than that, this is a pretty good grower. He's pretty steady. His roots are just constricted, so I'll probably do a repot with me video on him really soon. And this guy right here, this is the Anthurium Nervium. And I got him a few months after I got these two, and he's done absolutely nothing, which, believe it or not, I'm fine with. He still sucks up water. He still grows roots. He's just in like this suspended animation mode right now. So I'll wait him out. This big boy right here is by Anthurium crystallinum, and I had no idea that he was going to grow like this when I got him. I got him from a Facebook seller. He was only a few leaves, and then all of a sudden, his new growth started coming in, and it was multiple growth points. I was so excited. I didn't know what to do, but I was like, let me keep growing it, and I did. What ended up happening is every new growth cycle, he would add on 2 extra growth points. So he started with 2 growth points. Then the next cycle, he would have 4 growth points. And then he started sometimes only adding 1 growth point, but every new growth cycle, he adds some growth points. Last time I counted, we're at 10 now. So every time he goes through a growth cycle, he produces 10 leaves. And these are his latest 10 leaves. This is insane. Now, I know a few other people who have crystallinums like this, and I decided to do things a little bit differently. I like sized up leaves. So what I do is every time it goes through a new growth cycle, I prune back as many old leaves that are coming in. That means that he produced 10. I actually removed 8 leaves when I saw these were coming. Eventually, what I'm hoping for is the bigger he grows, the larger the leaves are gonna be, and then I'm just gonna have this really stunning, huge plant with these multiple big leaves. I have plans for this guy because I'm just so in love with him. Stachym. I got this Anthurium at an Ecuador pop-up in November of 2023. And this is a plant I had no idea that I needed, but when I saw it, I was just like, the leaf shape is so unique. I have to have this plant. I didn't know anything about it, but I just treat it like all of my other anthuriums, and he's fine. He doesn't grow the fastest, but let me tell you, this plant took a very long time to acclimate. And when it did acclimate, this was the first leaf that he pushed out. And this is his latest leaf. This one just got finished hardening off. I really like the more velvety anthuriums, but I took a chance with him, and I'm really glad I did. It's just so impressive. I love this plant. This is my Anthurium magnificum by Crystallinum. I got this as part of an Anthurium race challenge in, I think, 2022. And we were all given, some other plant content creators were all giving seedlings of this particular Anthurium. And mine grew the slowest because I think everyone thought I was going to win. And I didn't, because mine, like, this thing grew at a snail's pace. At one point, I was just like, it's not even worth having. But a friend who's very close to me is the one who gave this to me. So I was just like, no, I'm going to keep it alive. And this is a good example of how sometimes it's just the specimen that you have, and it's not the whole genus or the hybrid itself. I would imagine if he were grown like in a greenhouse, he might get pitched or thrown away because he was one of the runts. But I kept him, and even though he grows really slowly, he still pushes out leaves. And it's just interesting because both Magnificum and Crystallinum are not known to be slow growers, but you know, he is. And we're going to keep him as long as he wants to be alive. This is Anthurium regale. I also have him in a pot with Anthurium clarinervium. This was also one of my first Anthuriums. I got this from Equigenera. At the time, this plant was extremely sought after, and you can see why, because it's just stunning. However, he cost a pretty penny, and he was known not to be easy to take care of. If you are thinking about getting yourself a regale, you need to ask yourself what your threshold is for patience and pain and all those things. For one, his petioles are really, really long. And that means that it gives you the opportunity to break them. So I keep the petioles attached to a pole just to keep them more sturdier. I'm really not trying to discourage you guys from getting this plant, but it is very difficult to get a perfect leaf on this plant indoors. And he's forming another new leaf right here, which is a big deal because this plant probably puts out about two leaves a year. First leaf for the first year will be in January, so he's on track with his first leaf for this year. We are hoping that he looks good. But even in the wild, you're not going to see regales with like tons of leaves. I think that's just a part of this plant's genetics. Clarinervium. I put these two in the same pot. The biggest reason was to consolidate space because I just have so many plants. Having them in separate pots just takes up more space. I thought this would be a good combination because both of these plants grow really slowly, so I knew one wouldn't overtake the pot. This has been potted in the same container or the same lechuza planter for at least a year. These are the same. That's how slowly they grow. Within a year, I can change most of my Anthurium pots like 2, sometimes even 3 times, but this guy, he doesn't grow that fast. But I'm so happy with the combination. My clarinervium, I got this from Canopy Plant Co. I think that was in 2022. I just don't have to think about him. As you can see, most of his leaves look really good because he can deal with lower amounts of humidity, whereas some of my other plants, the minute the humidity drops for longer than a couple days, the leaves just the tips start turning brown. I don't have that problem with the clarinervium. I just think the clarinervium is a solid plant. It also keeps and holds on to lots of leaves, so when it does get big, it looks really good. Also, clarinerviums are known to break off into extra growth points. If you're lucky to get a specimen like that, kudos to you. I wish. I've seen pictures of bouquets of clarinervium because they're constantly spreading, kind of the same thing you saw with the Crystallinum that I had. These are just solid plants. I love both of them. Anthurium pallidiflorum. This is my one and only strap leaf philodendron. I got really into strap leaves, and my real wish list one was the Windlingerii, but it was just way too expensive. This is a really good dupe for that. But anyway, so when I got him, I was told that this plant was super easy and grows really fast. And in everyone else's experiences, that is true. But for some reason, mine, he's just grown so slow. He just hasn't really grown that fast. And I know this looks like a lot of growth, but I've had him for I think I might have gotten him in either 2021 or 2022, but I got him a really long time ago. So I feel he should be larger than this, but I'm very happy with what I have. I actually moved him to a new spot that he seems to be doing a lot better in. So hopefully he will start to grow more. This is a flower. This is one of his inflorescences. And I usually cut these off because I don't know. I did the whole Anthurium pollination thing for a long time, and it's a commitment that I just don't really think is worth it if you're not going to sell your Anthurium seedlings or disperse them in some kind of way. I usually just pick one plant that I want to pollinate, so I'm only dealing with one and not a bunch of different Anthurium seedlings. I need to cut him off. Actually, we're going to cut him off now. On a lot of my Anthuriums, especially the larger ones, the inflow takes so much energy from the leaves that it is almost guaranteed that as soon as that inflow starts really maturing, the oldest leaf on the plant will immediately start to die. Like it will just start to yellow and die. And I would rather have the leaf than the inflorescence. So I usually cut them off when they come out. This is my Anthurium crystallinum, and he is also my very first Anthurium. I got this Anthurium back in 2021, and I got it from a local nursery. Back in that time, Anthurium prices were absolutely insane. We're talking insane. And when I went to this particular plant shop, everything was completely out of my price range, but this one was $40. And I was just like, okay, I'm gonna get it. And then when I took it home, I would think that this was supposed to be $140, but I got it for $40. At least I think that's what happened, because I don't see why this was just so inexpensive. All the other ones are more expensive. But I was so nervous when I had this because it was my first Anthurium. When I got this plant, I immediately dropped it. I took it to my parents' house. I wanted to show them. I was literally showing everybody this plant, like, oh my God, I can't believe I got my first Anthurium. And I dropped him because I handled him too much. I was super upset about it. But you know what? This guy's been with me through a lot. That year, we also had Hurricane Rita, and we were without electricity for almost 2 weeks, like a week and a half, and I had evacuated, so I was gone. And when I got back, this plant was doing just fine. So he's tough. I've also learned a lot about Anthuriums through this plant. When I first got him, I was having problems with spider mites, and then the leaves were like pointing really, really far down. That made me realize that he really doesn't like that brighter light, and I have super bright light, natural light in my home. I moved him to a lower light situation and he did better, but I think that still wasn't enough, because this is probably the 5th time I've moved him, and this latest move seems to be that one. He is doing just fine. I don't see spider mites on him. I think he's good right now, and he's growing really well. This is the lowest light situation I've put him in. Also for you guys, I get so much natural light that low light for me is probably higher light for most people. So just take it with a grain of salt when I said I put him in low light. I want to make sure I set your expectations correctly. And last but not least, my pride and joy for now, the Anthurium magnificum. Let me tell you though, when I first got this one, I was not happy. I also got this one from Ecogenera. I got most of my Anthuriums from Ecogenera. I was in love with the magnificum, and specifically because I really like the really light veining in it against those really dark leaves. When I got this one in, I just wasn't that happy because he looked more like a Magnificum Verde. However, that quickly changed when I saw how quickly he was producing leaves. We're talking rapid fire producing leaves, and it would just get so much bigger than the last one. So he has just gotten so big that it's difficult not to notice his presence. He's actually growing so fast in the space that I had him in that I moved him because he was starting to shade out some of the other plants. When I moved him further back, he absolutely hated it. He rebelled hard, and it took him months to produce another leaf. And when I did get another leaf, it was this one, I believe. I couldn't put him in a different space because I have space constraints. I couldn't get him into one. I just decided to leave him there. Eventually, he ended his temper tantrum, and I got this leaf. With this leaf, I was like, okay, we're on the right track. But then after this leaf, he popped this one out, and that's when I knew he was finally happy. Believe it or not, he is working on another leaf. I have no idea what that leaf is going to look like. It could be smaller, it could be larger, because this leaf is coming in winter. So I'm not sure, but It's gonna have to be big. I have Anthurium forgetii in the same pot because I like to consolidate plants, but this wasn't the best idea to put these two specific Anthuriums in the same pot. The forgetii grows really slow, and I know slow is relative. I have an expectation of most of my Anthurium to grow at a steady pace. Forgetii, he doesn't size up really quickly, and in my experience, he just doesn't grow that fast. And so the Magnificum quickly dwarfed him, like very quickly dwarfed him. These plants came in the same order. And so not only is he not getting as much light as he could be because these leaves are shading him out, but I'm pretty sure, I haven't looked inside this pot in a very long time, I'm pretty sure the Magnificum roots have totally taken over this planter. At some point, I'm gonna go ahead and remove this, but that's gonna be some time off. Well guys, that was the entire gang. I hope you all enjoyed the video. This is such a huge relief. Like, this is a load off of my back. So many people have asked me to do this video that at some point, I would just feel like I was ignoring everyone. It just takes a while to get all of these Anthuriums in one place because some of them are just so large and I don't feel like moving them. This video will also serve as a reference for me so I can compare what their growth is like in like 6 months to a year. So that makes me happy. If you like this video, go ahead, like and subscribe. You can also follow me on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. I'm everywhere. Have a great day wherever you are, and bye.